And get started. So let's go ahead and get started. It's a minute after 6, so that way everybody's time is best used.
If you're not speaking, can you please mute your phone, please?
Who's the person with the echo? Okay, I think that's a little better. No, we still have an echo from somebody. Can we maybe just have people turn off their mics unless they're going to be speaking? Maybe that'll help. Let's try again. No, there's still an echo. Can we go ahead even with the echo, or is that going to be a bother for too many people? Excuse me.
I'm okay. This is Karen.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds. I think we're good now. Let's go ahead and have a call to order for the Laurel Ethics Commission meeting, Zoom meeting, during which we're going to be discussing financial disclosure statements. So if you could please go ahead with a roll call.
Okay, Chair Hester,
Present.
Vice Chair Bardwell,
Present.
Commissioner Lubinecki,
Present.
Commissioner Drake,
Present.
Commissioner Skaggs,
Present.
okay. All right, looks like everyone except alternate Crook is here from the commission.
Okay. We have a quorum. We only need 3 out of the people out of the commissioners, so we're good for a quorum. All right. Well, this meeting has been called to discuss the financial disclosure statements that have been submitted so far, or have been submitted by people who are running for election. And that's going to be on our draft agenda. That's the primary item. That's item number 3 to have this discussion. Item number 4 is going to be for general comments from the public. Anybody who'd like to comment as well. And then item number 5 is adjournment. So it's going to be a fairly straightforward meeting, I think. Although I'm flexible, and we'll take it where it goes. So. People running for office coming up in the upcoming elections. We're going to have elections for mayor and city council members, both Ward 1, Ward 2, and at large. And people have met their deadlines of submitting their packages to the Board of Election Supervisors. I see some of their people who are here, in particular, Chairman Kish from the Board of Election Supervisors is here on this Zoom, and I thank him for attending. And so these were submitted to the Board of Election Supervisors. In those packages are the required financial disclosure statements that are required under the Laurel Ethics Ordinance.
Chairman Hester, you muted yourself, sir.
Sorry there. Sorry, the differences in temperatures going high and low have given me a little bit of a sniffle, but I'm okay. Anyway, so the Board of Election Supervisors has removed from the elections packages from all of the candidates the financial disclosure statements that everyone was required to submit as required under the ethics ordinance for anybody running for office. We had a good number of people. All of the elections are being contested: mayor, Ward 1, Ward 2, and at-large council member. So that's wonderful to see that we have a strong interest in people wanting to be with our government and make contributions to the city. The Ethics Commission created a subcommittee to do the first review of these financial disclosure statements. And by the way, they're all on the long form because people running for political office file on the long form rather than the short form, which is what some people and some boards and commissions have to do. So we created a subcommittee that was comprised of Commissioner Maxine Bardwell and myself. I'm the chair of the commission. We reviewed all of them, and we found that of the 16 ones that had been submitted, 6 were very well done. People had spent time to read the instructions. They spent time to read the questions, and they provided thoughtful answers. That was 6 people. Unfortunately, 10 of the people who submitted these somehow were not able to submit complete forms. They perhaps were not paying attention to the instructions. They may not have fully read the questions. And so 10 of the 16 have substantive problems. And to that degree, those 10 do not meet the requirements and the standards of being a financial disclosure statement. We're going to be discussing what to do about those 10. But I just wanted to let you know what the numbers were just overall. And if there are any comments, perhaps by Commissioner Drake at this time, any general comments, then perhaps we might go through some of the specifics, not getting down to reading each and every one of these issues that we've discussed, but at least coming up with some of the general ones. So Commissioner Drake, would you please just take a few minutes to address the group?
We did go through all of the financial disclosure statements, and as our chair has stated, there were some that were very well filled out. There were others that needed work, and of the ones that needed work, there are some repeats that they've had problems in the past with these forms. So that's a little disheartening because it's not the first time. But other than that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. One other thing that we did was, as everyone is aware, these financial disclosure statements for incumbents, which includes mayor, city council members, plus key people who are appointees on commissions and boards and such, all have to file an annual financial disclosure statement. And we had a disappointing situation this year, like we did last year, unfortunately, where some people were not able to submit their financial disclosure statements in a timely way, or they submitted poorly written ones. And so we reviewed 4 of the ones that had been submitted late. And so that was also part of the review that Commissioner Drake and I undertook for the 2022 financial disclosure statements. And we have some minor comments and significant comments depending on those as well. So let's just start with the ones for the current election applicants who have submitted these. With regard to the mayor's position, there were 5 candidates for mayor. Of the 5 candidates for mayor, 1 person submitted a properly completed financial disclosure statement. There were substantive problems and issues with the other 4. Some of the kinds of issues, some are more significant than others. For example, perhaps reporting on the wrong schedule. We had 1 person report on the wrong schedule, and as to what was their source of income. That one is perhaps one of the more minor kinds of problems. Some of the other ones were more substantial, where they simply did not fill out schedules. 1 person filled out their form entirely in pencil. These are legal documents. They have to be done in ink. since they are available for people at any time to come back and review, we don't want it to be able to have someone change what someone may have written down in pencil and otherwise modify a legal document such as one of these. There were people who are running for mayor who perhaps were not clear as to whether or not they earned any income for the year, which makes no sense to us as a ethics commission that someone earns zero income over an entire year, or they were not able to identify any kind of a residence that they either owned, rented, or leased anywhere in the city. And so they were not reporting as having any residence of any kind anywhere. And so issues like that are rather substantial in our opinion in terms of properly filling out an ethics form. For the most part, we were not doing any kind of investigative work. There's one case where something just kind of really stood out that we spent about 60 seconds investigating. But when people would do things like report no gifts received, we were not doing any kind of investigation as to whether or not that was accurate. We were not doing investigations as to whether or not people were listing every property in which they had a financial interest. We were not doing those kinds of investigations. We were taking people's words for what they were saying as, as on face value. But even doing that, there were significant problems with these. If you say that you don't live in the city or you don't have any kind of residence of any kind, that just, it's not believable. You have to live somewhere. With regard to the people who are running for the wards as city council members, for Ward 1, we had 3 people who submitted very well done, properly done financial disclosure statements. People took the time to read the instructions. Anybody who wanted to come and talk to us and ask us questions as to how to fill these out before filling them out, we've constantly been offering, if anybody would like to talk to us, we'll tell you how to fill them out. People were not coming to us for the most part. So for Ward 1, there are 4 people running. 3 of them did very nicely done financial disclosure statements, which leads us to think that perhaps the one person who did not, just like the people running for mayor, were not taking this really seriously or spending time trying to read the instructions, and especially people who have filled out financial disclosure statements in the past for having been incumbents or having somehow worked within the city in the past. With regard to Ward 2, 1 person properly filled out their financial disclosure statement. 2 people did not. The 2 people who did not, again, not saying where they live, not saying what kind of financial or source of finances they have in terms of income of any kind, whether it's earned income or something they get from investments or whatever. So in the case of Ward 2, it was 1 out of 4 who properly filled it out, which we were very disappointed with. With regard to the at-large council member position, 1 person took the time to read through and understand and ask questions and properly submit a properly completed financial disclosure statement. 2 people did not. So 1 out of 3 did it correctly. 2 of them did not. It raises a question in our mind. We could do something like we've done in the past and have people go back and fill them out again and again and again. But at what point do you stop doing that? And if you go back and start asking people to redo theirs, what does that say about the people who submitted theirs on time according to the deadline that the Board of Election Supervisors set? They did submit financial disclosure statements that are considered by the Ethics Commission as properly completed financial disclosure statements. And so are they going to be somehow disadvantaged because they actually tried to do these correctly and they did succeed? So we know that it's not impossible. We know that it's quite possible since so many people did submit properly completed financial disclosure statements. So there's that general question that's kind of out there. We don't really see this as something that the Ethics Commission should be deciding in terms of going back to people. We were handed these by the Board of Election Supervisors. We have prepared a draft memo to go back to the Board of Election Supervisors that lists whichever ones of these that are done properly and completely and that were submitted on time to them. And it lists all the names of the people who filled out forms that are not considered to be financial disclosure statements in terms of having been completed properly or accurately or completely. And I think we're kind of leaning towards the idea that this should be a decision by the Board of Election Supervisors as to how they want to handle their requirement for financial disclosure statements to be part of each package by each person running for office. Does the Board of Election Supervisors wish to go back to individuals 1 or 2 or 3 or however many times until they get something that is properly filled out, or they want to say that you were given the chance, you were given the opportunity, the instructions are clear. The fact that so many people filled theirs out correctly and properly and submitted them on time shows that this is not an unreasonable requirement. So that's just kind of my overall summary. I'd like to invite other commissioners from the Ethics Commission to add in their thoughts at this time. Let's start with Commissioner Drake, since she had been one of the people on the subcommittee doing this initial review. And thank you very much, Commissioner Drake, for your very hard work on this and very conscientious and accurate analysis that you've helped provide to create this draft memo that is going to eventually in some form go back to the Board of Election Supervisors from the Ethics Commission. So Commissioner Drake, would you like to add something more?
No, not at this
Could you
time. I
unmute?
guess I'm wondering.
Could you unmute? Commissioner Drake, could you unmute?
I thought I had.
I can hear her. Is she on, are you on phone and Zoom?
I believe she's on phone and Zoom. I believe that was the echo earlier. So she,
Sound is off, so I've got to call.
we can hear you.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
Looks like a brief technical difficulty. Commissioner Drake, are you there now? While we're waiting for her to come back, I'd like to ask any other commissioners for their thoughts. Let's start with Mr. Skaggs. Mr. Skaggs, are you on still?
Yes.
Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
It seems to me that nobody takes this seriously. How do we get the people to fill these forms out when there's nothing happens to them when they don't?
I agree. In one particular instance, there's a individual who's running for mayor. I just took a quick look at some of the past years, and I noticed that in the 2021, which was last year's financial disclosure statement process, we had a person running for mayor who currently running for mayor who was late on their submission, submitted one improperly. And this is the same person who did not submit their 2022 financial disclosure statement until a couple of days ago on the 20th,
Followed by pound.
which I understand was just before the submission of the elections packages, shortly before the elections packages were due. And this person did not submit their financial disclosure statement for last year until the
Enter your
22nd of July.
participant ID followed by pound.
Going back
Otherwise,
to
just press pound to continue.
2020, the 2020 timeframe, the same individual was not a member of the
Tony Drake.
city council, but
Joined the meeting.
but they were a member of the Board of Appeals. And the Board of Appeals does require financial disclosure statements, although the Board of Appeals financial disclosure statement is relatively short compared to these ones that elected officials are required to submit. And so the same individual in their 2020 filing was late again. And so now this one individual does not seem to be taking seriously a financial disclosure statement. There seems to be a pattern of from 2020, 2021, 2022. And now in their election package, the same individual has not completed theirs properly. So it's kind of a pattern, a repeat pattern of this one individual. And it's, what do we do in terms of, I'm very much in agreement with Commissioner Skaggs. At what point do we say the city of Laurel is a professional city, and we are not something that's just sort of, back of the envelope sort of operation? We are a serious city. Should we be taking our ethics seriously in our city? Should we be taking our elections seriously? Holding people accountable for what they're required to be held accountable for as required by the state of Maryland. Let me get off my soapbox for a moment. Commissioner Drake, are you online now?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay. Yeah, having a little trouble with my sound. But the individual you were just speaking of, not only has it been not complete, but just the look of it. It's something was spilled on it, and that went through 3 pages. There's dirt on it, and it's like, how do you put or submit an official document? None of us would be able to do that with our employers, or even in school. If you had submitted something just looking like that, the teacher would have handed it back and said, do it again. So it's very alarming to me and disappointing to think that is what this person thinks of our city and what is a proper official document. Most of the others, some of them were just small things, and there seems to be more problem with Schedule H in a lot of respects, and that's where you list out your income. If there is one place where that came up a lot, it was with Schedule H for the most part. And again, as Chairman Hester said, the whole thing of an address. You're running to represent the city of Laurel, and you have an address, but you don't say whether you're a tenant or if you own it. You just at this place. So that's something that I think really needs to be cleared up, especially if you're running to represent a particular ward. You got to live in that ward. That's just the requirement. I think that's mainly it that I had at this time.
Vice Chair Bardwell, are you online now?
Yes, I'm here.
You have any comments at this point?
Well, I agree with what's been said thus far. I don't believe in generalities. We've shown that some people have filled out the form properly, so I don't agree with saying nobody's listening, but I think there is a recourse for those that are what I call repeat offenders. Having the ability to reach out if there's questions, having the ability to just if something's brought to your attention previously, being cognizant of that going forward, making note and making sure that you at least put forth an effort to not repeat it. So I do believe that there is recourse for those that blatantly don't adhere to whatever the ethics code says for those that want to run genuinely and sincerely. There is recourse for the city to, but like you said earlier, Chair Hester, that's not within our purview, but we can make recommendations that they not be permitted to run for office. That's my 2 cents.
Commissioner Lubinecki, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Well, I've been hearing, since this is only really my second meeting, obviously I haven't had the long-term experience with some of the forms that have not been properly submitted, which gives me kind of an odd perspective, but maybe slightly frustrating. And I think the challenge for us is, as an organization, we want the citizen participation in things like elections. I mean, as when you started and pointed out how many people had submitted forms at least to run, that's a very important activity in our city. And I'm concerned for those who don't fill it out properly and show what I would call disrespect, but not illegality by sending in a messy form. I mean, I think unfortunately we need to separate what's irritating because someone didn't do it in a neat form, and as the other commissioner mentioned, that it was spilled, which is disrespectful for the process in any way, but it's not the kind of thing that you would get eliminated for. You know what I mean? That's not illegal. And I think we are facing a real challenge here. I mean, in a personal standpoint, my goal or perspective would be to give even those who have not done this correctly over a period of time. And I can understand other commissioners' incredible irritation having had to go back time and again with evidently some candidates. I do get that. But that as an organization and as a city, I think we have to make every effort possible to make as many of these able to run, because discouraging running is inadvisable if we possibly can avoid it, or eliminating somebody from running is inadvisable if we can help make that happen. I mean, that's just an overall philosophy, Mr. Chairman. You're on mute, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to ask our legal counsel, Mr. Whitley, if you have any thoughts or comments at this time.
I tend to believe that this is a call that the Board of Elections would have to make with some recommendations from us. If there are financial disclosure statements that are not properly filled out, I think we communicate that to the Board of Elections, and they would make the call as to what the next step would be. If Mr. Chairman would like, I'd happily speak with their counsel and try to at least have some coordination. But I think our job is to review them. If they are filled out properly, we're to communicate that, and not filled out properly, we're to communicate that as well. And in the letter, if the chair and the board wants to express its frustration with repeat offenders or disrespect for the process, I believe that that's appropriate. However, our main objective is just to say which ones are filled out properly and which ones are not.
Okay, that was kind of the place that I was starting at the beginning of this discussion. I'm not sure I heard anything overly different from that from any of the commissioners.
Does, Mr. Chairman, excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Sure,
does
go
the
ahead.
Board of Elections have a deadline involved that if we gave candidates the opportunity, and with a very short deadline, I would suggest, to fix their forms, given the elements that don't meet the requirements. Is there a time frame that we could come up with that would say within a week, if they're not, this is the letter that's going to be sent to the Board of Elections? If you don't fix it by August, I don't know, give a week, I'm just.
There is a process. I don't have the timeline in front of me, but tomorrow the financial disclosure statements and the memo will go back to the Board of Elections, and they'll review them. Then they will go back to the candidates, and they will have a certain amount of time to change their financial disclosure statements and resubmit.
Okay, I wasn't aware, so thank you. That really helps my understanding. I appreciate that.
And don't hold me to this, but I believe there's 8 days that the candidates have to resubmit and correct any shortcomings in their applications. Like I said, I'm not the attorney for the Board of Elections, but for some reason, I think 8 days sticks in my mind.
It really is the decision of the Board of Election Supervisors rather than ours. We've done our job. We've identified what's right and what's not. And so it's going to be up to them to make their decisions as to how they want to use this information and what process they want to go through. And they have an attorney of their own who advises them. But I think it's important to, point out certain things as well, like that we've already mentioned today, like patterns, rather than, I agree that if you have, a smudge on your paper, that's irritating, but that's not it. But that wasn't really the main problem with this. The main problem was it was not signed on the line where it says sign here. It was not dated where it says put the date here. That's that kind of, this is a legal document. You don't, if you buy a house and you have to put your name, on the, on the contract to buy the house, you don't put your signature someplace else on the document. You put it where the line is, where it says sign here. And you date it, it's, there are many other problems. And again, it's a pattern of, on this one particular individual where they just repeatedly, and we've given this individual many opportunities, going all the way back to the 2020 financial disclosure statements, where we've gone back and said, this is not how you do it. You have to correct this, this, and this. They go back and they either correct it or they don't. For the 2022 one, they did not until just before they had to submit their package to the Board of Election Supervisors. Why would somebody wait that long, especially someone who has been provided personal hand-holding guidance since 2020 every year on how to do these? And they still are not doing them right. That's not just something that, perhaps somebody was, not a professional or something. There's something more to it than that in some of these cases. But it's going to be up to the Board of Election Supervisors. And as was mentioned, we are going to be giving this memo to them tomorrow, the draft memo that all the commissioners have seen. If we want to, add a sentence or two, fine, but it's really not our decision. It's going to be their decision. And if they're going to allow for refinements of elections packages, whether it's in financial disclosure statements or anything else in the elections packages, that's their decision. And if they're going to come back to us and say, we're going to give somebody a chance to redo theirs, well, we'll be happy to review it again. If they want to provide it back to us. But it's our job to review them and say which ones are correct and which ones are not. And that's what we're going forward with, is a very simple statement. But we're not saying don't allow such and such a person to run. We're simply giving them information as to whether or not a financial disclosure statement that was submitted is properly and completely filled out.
And Chairman Hester, if I can just add one thing, the question about the signature and it being off to the side, if you actually were to look at the signature page, all of these forms have to be notarized. And there was a raised notary seal, but where the seal was and where the signature appears just raises some questions. It may not be anything, but just on the surface, it just raises some questions. So I don't want you to think we're just being nitpicky.
A notary seal has
talk about
to cut across the actual signature itself, which certifies that signature is the correct signature done in front of the notary. This was not the case on this one particular financial disclosure statement. So again, it's, we're not being nitpicky, and these are legal documents, and you have to fill them out properly. Okay, anybody, any other commissioners want to raise anything else? Staff?
I would like to say, I looked up the timeline, and once we will submit this back to the Board of Electors, they will review it, and then the candidates will have 20 days to redo their forms. That's on what's on the timeline, and then they'll come back to us for review.
Okay.
Okay.
And we stand ready to do that review when the time comes. We are at the service of the Board of Election Supervisors.
Right. And that seems like a more than generous timeline to me to make any modifications or repair any deficiencies.
It's more than one time.
Well, especially for people who want to be the mayor or the city council, who are supposed to be leading the charge on ethics, not dragging their heels on it. They're the ones who need to be setting the example of how to be ethical and how to comply with the ethics ordinance. And we've never withheld any advice to anybody who's come to us and say, please tell us how to fill this out. We're always there for them. All right, is there any other discussion from staff on this? Hearing none, I think we have a plan to move forward. Are we good to go, Ms. Christopoulos, on this, and Administrator Pulley? Do we have a plan to move forward with this memo?
Yes, I believe so, unless it doesn't seem like anyone else has anything to add to the memo. If you do think of something later tonight or early in the morning, go ahead and email me, and I can edit the memo to add any concerns that you have later.
Okay. All right, let's move to the next item on the agenda, which is the general public hearing. I notice we have some people who are with us, and thank you for attending. Welcome. You're welcome to all of our public meetings. Do we have any members of the public who would like to say anything, address anything to us, ask us any questions? Ask me what my favorite color is. You can ask anything you want. Not hearing anybody? If you're trying to talk, be sure you unmute. Anybody? Not hearing anybody? Okay. General public hearing then is concluded. Next item is the adjournment. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All right. Do we have a second? Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 We're unanimous, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for attending, including our public members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you,
Good night,
Mr. Chairman.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Good
Good
night,
evening.
all.
Thank you.
Mhm.